Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Peri Power Hour. I am Dr. Carrie Nevin, where we talk all things perimenopause and menopause. And today we have a very special guest, Kim Oser. Kim Oser, welcome today.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your journey with us. What I'd like to do is just have you go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about you if you're comfortable sharing your age as that's relevant. And if you're not, that's absolutely okay too.
Sure. So I am 55 and turning 56 this year, and I am single, never been married, never had children, which I think does come into play because I think there's different rules for women who have had children and women who haven't had children when it comes to menopause and perimenopause. So I think that that is relevant. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner. Today, yesterday, tomorrow, 2 days ago, or 2 days from now might have been my 22nd anniversary of my business.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. I need to go to LinkedIn
Yeah.
because I know that's where I actually like put it down, and then I get all the things like all the congratulations messages on LinkedIn.
I love it.
But I know it's sometime around right now. So I've been
Well,
in business 22 years. I do professional organizing and productivity consulting, and that's I'm in the Washington D.C. area, and that's pretty much the
the background. Okay, well, you know what? Let's dig in. So, when I first approached you and let you know I was doing the Perry Power Hour, you were one of the first people that raised her hands to share her story. First of all, how did you know, or did you know, that you were in fact in perimenopause?
Okay, so two different things. One, when you asked, absolutely, I raised my hand because you and I have known each other probably about a year now, and my struggle has been tremendous, and we'll walk through it. But when I met you in person in a bad place in my journey, and I think you knew that, and you were like, whatever I can do to help, and this and that. But I was at the point where I don't even know. But when did I first realize I was in perimenopause? I realized after I was in perimenopause that I had been in perimenopause. About 2 years ago, I realized, okay, my behavior back in 2017, 2018, that felt like it wasn't me. And I was like, God, I'm becoming a real bitch in old age, was probably related to perimenopause. But it took me 5, 6, 7 years to realize that that's what that behavior was, that
Mm.
behavior change was.
And it was a notable behavior change from earlier times in your life.
Well, it was notable because my closest friend would say to me, "So you're gonna have a hissy fit about this too?" And we would be somewhere, and I would find that like I just was like anxious and I couldn't adapt to number one, I like to get my own way. Like I'm the planner and I like when everybody follows my plan. But I was just so rigid and it was like my way or the highway. And when I would get challenged on something or someone would change the schedule or anything like that, like I would just like shut down. I'd be like, well, I'm not gonna be ready then. And they'd be like, can you try to be ready? I'm like, it's just not, I mean, when we were supposed to leave at 1, like it would just be not at all flexible. And it wasn't like me because I'd be like, okay, well, then I gotta get, like a normal person would be like, oh, that's in 15 minutes. Like I gotta move my ass now, like versus me that I
Yeah.
was like it's just not happening. And my friend was like, "You gonna have a hissy fit?" And I was offended by it and I was hurt by it. But what I realized later is that I couldn't control it. And I said to her later, like years later, and I was like, and it got to the point where I was like, I'm working on it, I'm working on it. And I would like consciously like try to be more relaxed and be less rigid. Not again, still not realizing that what this was due to. And then I said to her, in the past year or so, and I was like, my behavior back then, I was like, that had to be hormonal. Like, because that once I'm starting to get my hormones under control, that behavior has completely dissolved without me doing anything else.
Wow.
So, yeah,
And
it's
Kim,
been a while.
well, it does sound like it was a while. And I think that like so many of us, hindsight is more 2020. And you have the vantage point of being able to look back and be like, wow, I had no emotional bandwidth back then, but that wasn't always true. And so now, would you say that you are post-menopause at this point?
Not on the technical, like 12 years. I mean, 12 years.
It's about 10 year anyway.
But I will say that as part of my journey, a month ago in January of this year, I met with the fifth GYN that I've met with since 2020.
The fifth, did you say
Yeah.
five?
Yeah. Yeah.
Five?
And I had an appointment the following week for a sixth in case the fifth one didn't give me answers. But there was like, I mean, like a year with one and, 9 months with another and another like one visit. And I was like, they don't know what they're talking about. Like, and these
Wow.
were all folks that no longer are OBs, like they're GYN, they're not delivering babies and like that kind of stuff. And I just really wasn't being helped. But the number five, I canceled appointment number six. Number five basically said to me, despite the fact that you're still bleeding, I don't think you've been ovulating for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Wow, what an accurate statement that is, because that can happen.
correct. And he also said, and I've got ways to stop the bleeding, which again, like nobody had said, like nobody else had offered that. One doctor said, you should get, why haven't any of these other doctors offered you an ablation? Because that'll stop your bleeding. But I don't do them. So then I was like, okay, well, that was number four. So then number
Oh,
five, I made sure did them.
yes.
And there's waiting time in between these appointments. And
Yes.
I just felt like I was being so gaslit
Yes.
by all of these doctors where it was like, and then like the expression that I would get a lot is, you're not there yet. And I don't know your audience, but I'm going to use profanity because that's how I felt.
We
And
encourage
that,
profanity on
okay.
this
So
hour.
I
Yes,
was
we do.
like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, how long do I have to suffer until I get there? And so
And
it was
what
a,
is there when you stop having
thank you.
your period? Is that what the thinking was?
Right. And again, like that's where I kind of got the feeling it felt to me, and it might just be because I've never had children, but it felt to me that I was being treated or handled differently than people who had children because I was going to the same physicians as my friends. And I understand we're all different,
Mhm.
but doctor number three was the one that actually started me on HRT. But until then, like nobody would start me on HRT. They were giving me birth control pills. I was bleeding right through them. Like it was just crazy. And I was gaining weight and
Mhm.
like all the things and whatever. And so I was like, this is this like and I would eventually just stop them because they weren't helping. And I knew in my heart of heart that that's not what the path is of how you're supposed to be traveling. But then these same physicians would be giving my friends estrogen patch, progesterone, testosterone, like all the things.
Yes.
And my friends were like, it's so great. And I'm like, I can't write it myself.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You just said something really significant. I knew in my heart of hearts that this isn't what I was, that this is wasn't the path I was supposed to be traveling on. And that it took you five physicians is incredible that you still had the wherewithal to continue the journey and persevere. And this
Yeah,
is when you talk about being gaslit, that is very typical. Well, I shouldn't say it's typical. I should say that the story is typical of feeling like you're gaslit. And no matter what you're coming up with, I mean, I heard welcome to your 40s, and
yeah,
I didn't go back after that last visit. You don't know. And you're making this be about me
right.
instead of what you don't know. How about just refer me to somebody who might, you
Yeah,
know? I'm just so
yeah.
sorry you had to go through five iterations.
Yeah, right. And when I met you in person, which we met for anyone who's watching, we met because we were at the same place at the same time. It wasn't like we were meeting as a, like a therapy session. But
No, no, she was Kim
yeah, we
is
were
not my
social.
client, just so
Yeah.
everyone's clear. She is not my
Yeah,
client.
but not
Ah,
but like, we were at a social event and one of the things that I guess it's sort of like, kind of like when if you do something like so often, it's kind of like you're parasympathetic, like you just kind of like roll with the punches and that kind of stuff. And fortunately for me, being an entrepreneur, being single, this is my only income. And I was able to compartmentalize what I was going through and how I was feeling and separate that from my work. So I was still able to function, but I had all of this other stuff. And like the minute I would get out of a client or an event or anything, I would like break down and I would just be like a mess. And it's upsetting to me because I watched myself go through it and I'm like, nobody should have to live like that.
no.
So it was, but I was able to separate it. So you may not have been able to see through me, but like I can look at myself in the pictures and see how strained I was from the event that we were at together.
Well, we were at this Sunny and Jen event with Lindsay Pinchuk and Dear Found Her. And I have to tell you, I had no idea. Kim, you were like a rock star. I mean, not like a rock star, you were a rock star. You
Thank
had
you.
that whole thing running so smoothly and so efficiently, and it went off like gangbusters. It was a fabulous event. And I know it couldn't have gone the way it did without you. And what strikes me is how hard do you have to be working in order to meet that mark in your own mind and heart where you say, look, I know this is what I'm capable of doing and I am going to meet that mark. And what is it actually costing you? Because if you're working and you're talking about, your clients and that you would hold it together long enough so that you could, at the end of your time together, log off and break down, like no one should have to live like that. And that's exactly why I wanted to start the Perry Power Hour, was to say, look, there are alternatives and we can provide information and help you understand what's happening to you on a mind and body level and how to right the ship again and be who you are, truly.
Right, right. And I think, and like I said to you, like it's most important that I share for other people that number one, there's resources because, like now it obviously you work in the field, but like menopause is having a moment, like that's what people keep saying and whatever.
They,
And I do think that we are in a very fortunate time because of the removal of the black box warning
yes.
on HRT and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that that opens up the conversation more. But, I think that my mom's kind of bewildered by how much my friends and I talk about menopause. And I will say part of being gaslit was the number one thing that people would say, doctors, physicians' offices, questionnaires would be like, what's your family history of menopause? And I'm like, my mother had a hysterectomy before she turned 50. So I have no history. My mother, when she had her hysterectomy before she turned 50, came out of the operating room and the recovery room with an estradiol patch on because it was pre the study that came out with all the black box warnings and everything. But my mom unfortunately had a reaction to the adhesive. So she ended up taking oral and then when the studies came out, she got pulled off of it. And her physician realized within 3 years that the studies were flawed. And so he offered for her to go back on, and she never did. But she does, fortunately, because I'm like, you are using vaginal estrogen, aren't you? Like, and my mom who's saying, like, I can't believe you and your friends are discussing it. I'm like, what do you mean? We talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she was like, okay, yeah, we didn't do any of that. But so she is, because I know, like, even as you age, how important that is. But,
Yeah.
like, so I didn't have a history. I didn't know what age my mom was when she went through menopause because it was surgical menopause. And my mom wouldn't know that, and neither would my grandmother, who's deceased, because she would be like 109.
Yeah.
But she also had a hysterectomy young. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
really, absolutely no idea
No, nothing.
for you.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It,
So no warning. Like besides the cultural, like generational, we don't talk about. But I do think that it's important that if there's anybody who's in a situation like mine where they're not getting the immediate help, that they know that they're not at the right doctor.
it's not just the quarterback that's going to handle the situation. And we need to be advocates of our own health care. And the way we do that is, I'm hoping, by becoming educated, watching, interviews such as this, realizing that there are many different aspects to women that have not been considered for too long. And I'm so happy that you found help.
Believe it or not, he's on my insurance.
Oh, yeah, like
But
really,
to,
it's so good.
yeah, but to tell, because last year I paid cash all year
Really, yeah.
for a physician. And again, like I said, like that doctor got me on hormones, so I got to a certain place, but I could even tell when I was on such a low dose of estradiol that I could even tell when I was having fluctuations.
Wow, you were that sensitive.
Oh, I was sensitive because, to get back to the emotional aspects of it, out of nowhere, I would just cry for days. And again, go to a client, be on point, be on this, be on that. and get out and sit in my car and just lose it.
Well, there's a couple points that you made here. One is that being on what is, HRT is, it's been historically referred to as hormone replacement therapy. It's now being referred to as menopause hormone therapy
Yeah.
because that's what this is. It's hormone therapy. And for you, I think to talk about when you had the hormones put back in. And what are you taking estrogen, progesterone, testosterone at this point?
I'm not on testosterone yet.
Okay,
But
okay.
I've only been with this physician a month, and I understand that that's usually
Perfect. Yeah. Well, it does take
because
time. So
because I have my uterus, I'm taking progesterone.
yes.
And
Yeah.
quite honestly, what this doctor did different than other doctors, first of all, he put together the pieces of different things doctors said along the line, but they never explained it and they never took the step to actually help. But when I said to you that he says that he doesn't think I'm ovulating anymore, he thinks that my body's still producing its own estrogen. And so what's been happening is, your estrogen lines your uterus to receive the egg and, whether it's fertilized or whatever, and then you get your period and then the uterine lining sloughs off. What he thinks is that because I wasn't ovulating, my uterine lining was building up. And
Mm,
so I was having all this discomfort and pressure. Then at a certain point, the uterine lining would get so thick that it would start to break off in pieces. And so
mm.
that's where I was bleeding, where it wasn't like a normal period, but I was bleeding and I would explain to all these physicians exactly how it was going and whatever. And I guess they just still thought it was abnormal period.
Yeah. Well,
And to tell you, I've had transvaginal ultrasounds and I've had biopsies and all this stuff to try to figure it out. And knock on wood, all of that's normal.
now it's normal. It's getting normal again. Well, it just goes to show you, that the physicians, because of that WHI study from 2002, where the findings were misrepresented and everyone was told to stop immediately using your hormone therapy because it would cause breast cancer, which is completely inaccurate. That, right, so there's this, how many doctors are not educated with this vital information? And not only that, the estrogen arm of the study showed that there was an actual reduction in breast
Yeah.
cancer. So to say that a generation of women have been completely withheld from this vital, life-saving information. I mean, because we're not just talking about all of the, death by a thousand cuts, which is, joint pain and mood issues and hot flashes, but, we're talking about brain health and heart health and bone health. And the idea is for us to have a vibrant health span. We don't want, I don't, who wants a health span that's very long? But if you're, demented and incontinent, then
Uh-huh.
forget it. Like we're not
Right.
doing that. So,
Quality.
correct, it is. It's
Yeah.
about quality. And so let me ask you, now that you are more balanced on the hormones, can I ask you in terms of, it's not like, from my perspective, hormones are like gas to a car.
Hmm.
And, it will get you from point A to point B, and it will help in a lot of ways. But you really do need a navigation system. And so, from your perspective, what is that navigation system for you? Is it thoughts and emotions and being able to realize I have agency over where I choose to put my attention, what I choose to focus on, how I choose to think and feel? Does that impact your quality of life?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I could say that for like if I was somebody that was just trying to start out in a new business, I would have surrendered and I don't even know how I would be able to make a dime. But I think that my experience in having open conversations with my friends and, knowing, trusting my gut, I think you said that earlier, like trusting my gut to say, this is not right. This is and to like what you were saying, I think I should be clear. I've had maybe six hot flashes through
Oh,
this entire
really?
yes. And I did a couple things early in life, and I say that early in life, like in my 30s. I was like, you know what? I'm going to get ahead of this menopause thing and I'm going to start weight training. And all my girlfriends were like, you're going to bulk up and are you going to compete and are you going to this and don't get too muscular and da 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 da. And all the stuff that we know now is not true. But like around 35, I was like, you know what? That menopause thing's going to hit and it's going to be harder to lose weight. And I had had an injury. I had had a disc herniation in my neck. And so recovering from like getting off of steroids from that and whatever. And I was like, you know what? I need to make my body strong to support myself as as, from wear and tear, as we start to break down, my body needs to be able to support myself because I need to be able-bodied and be able to walk. And I don't want to be that person in a wheelchair or that person, using a walker or a cane, early on. I'm an observational person. I mean, my grandmother passed away when she was 99. She lived pretty much independently almost the entire time. When she moved into an independent senior community, she started using a walker then, and she was in her 90s. And my personal feeling about why she started using a walker then was because then she didn't have to worry about where she put down her purse because her purse was attached to the
The
walker.
walker.
So it was kind of like,
Convenient.
right. And she didn't need it. Like if she had to go to the bathroom, she would get up and she would walk to the bathroom.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, but like, I want to be that active person. I mean, I have a very good role model in my parents. My parents are very active. So I just was like, I got to get ahead of this and, recover from this injury and get strong and be careful what I put into my body. And so I started doing that. Like I was on all the seeds and getting rid of like, I mean, I've been doing flax, chia, hemp for 12 years, where, at that point, chia was like the thing that was going to grow the plant hair.
Yes.
But like, I got, and I don't have any white flour, any white sugar. I don't have any vegetable oils in my house. Like a friend of mine, when she came in town, this is how my perimenopausal symptoms were prior to when I was still getting my period, prior to getting my period. It got to the point where I would have these vasovagal symptoms. And
Mm.
I happened to have a friend in from out of town, and she happened to be staying in town for the Passover Seder. And she was upstairs and I was downstairs making coffee, and her daughter was here. And I said to her daughter, "Oh, I just got lightheaded." And I went and I sat on the staircase. And next thing I know, her daughter's going, "Kim, Kim." And so that was the one time I've passed out from it.
Oh,
But thank God they were here with me,
oh,
because like that's not scary as hell, living alone and
yeah.
passing out. And who knows how long I would have been passed out, like if her daughter hadn't called my name. Or yeah, so scary. And that's where I was like, I need help. Like, and then still people wouldn't help me. But what ended up happening was, the funny thing is for Passover, one of the recipes that my friend was planning on making used canola oil.
Oh
And I
no.
was like, I'm not buying canola oil. I was like, you can use my ghee, and I was like, you can
Right.
melt ghee.
Yes, yeah.
So she did. And she told me it wasn't the same. Her daughter's like, it's so much better. She's like, it's not the same. She went home and made it for her husband using the canola oil. And she goes, I have a confession. And she's like, I go, what? She goes, it was better with the ghee.
Of course
Yeah.
it.
So then now she's eliminating like the inflammatory oils. But like and I don't eat a whole lot of red meat. I don't like steak. So I don't eat a whole lot. I like ground beef, but I just don't like the texture of a steak. And so I'm careful, and I think that has helped me ward off some of these nuisance symptoms that accompany perimenopause. So
Yeah,
I'm grateful that I haven't had those. But again, like that's part of the questionnaire they ask you. How often are you having night sweats? How often are you having hot flashes? And I'm like, I'm not. And so I think you get discounted, your other symptoms get
I
discounted.
think you're absolutely right. I think you're
Yeah, because you
absolutely.
don't have those. So,
Well, it would be, I think for any, I can imagine that for any doctor that listened to you and asked you about hot flashes and night sweats, because those are the hallmarks, but we're quickly learning that it's certainly not all about that.
yeah,
That they would probably think, okay, well, she's not there yet. So this
yeah,
whole idea of not there yet is not precision medicine, and you want a physician who is into
hmm,
precision, I can't say the word. Thanks,
yeah.
menopause. Precision
There
medicine.
you go.
There it is. I can do it. You know what's so interesting, Kim, about you is I want to understand what made you think about menopause in your 30s? Because when you just mentioned, oh, hey, I want to get ahead of this menopause thing, I was not thinking about that. Not even close. So
Yeah.
what led you to think about that?
So I'm a planner.
Oh, wait, I think I'm seeing the
I,
picture form.
I'm a planner, so I'll start there. But I also have always struggled with my weight. I was always doing some sort of dieting and this, that, and the other. And the fear at the time, like when you heard about menopause, you're like, oh, women get belly fat with menopause and they gain weight. And that's why so many senior citizens you see are like heavy and using a walker and all that kind of stuff. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm going to get ahead of that. And I'm going to try to control things now where I don't have my body working against me.
Mm.
And so, and again, like, I mean, I knew the concept of, oh, you gain weight in your belly and your body starts to break down, around your 50s, but like not exactly tying it to menopause and not like tying it to all of the other things that happen with menopause, like the brain fog and the this and that and the other. And
Yep.
that's also something that I was like insanely sensitive to, like when I could say to the doctor, like, I need to increase my estrogen
Mm.
because my brain fog is crazy. Like the time that I met you, when I got back, like some of my friends were like, I don't know how you did that. And I was like, I don't know how I made it to the airport, had the right stuff in my suitcase, like thought ahead that I needed to send ahead box cutters and like things like,
Wow.
like things that I don't know how I did that because like that's how out of my norm I was.
Mm.
But I actually had an instance this morning where somebody had called me about an event that they want me to work on in 2027. And they said, we had talked about it in 2025, and you said you only book a year out. So call you back in 2027. So I was able to see that I had a conversation with her book in September, not that long ago.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't know anything. I did not remember anything. Thankfully, on the booking thing, she wrote like one of the questions I have in there is like, how'd you hear about me? And blah, blah, blah. And so she wrote in some details. So at least I was like, I had no idea. Like when I talked to her this morning, no recollection of it whatsoever. And I'm the one that always reminds everybody of everything because I always remember everything.
I
And
mean,
it
the
didn't
level of,
matter.
yeah, the detail that you have to be in touch with to be successful at your business is really off the charts.
Yeah.
And the fact that you didn't remember it and didn't recall it, I literally have not an exact experience because I still don't know the answer to this question, but I put in my book for next week on a day that I would normally be working out at 9:30 in the morning on a Wednesday, the name Jake. And I said to my husband just 2 days ago, I go, I have absolutely no idea who Jake
Nope.
is. And he's like, is he a client? Did you have look in, this book or this? I still, Kim, have no idea who Jake
Yeah.
is. So maybe I'll be able to call you next week once Jake reaches out to me because I'm like, why would I schedule it during a time that I'm definitely going to be working
Right.
out? Like that
Yeah.
makes no sense.
Yeah.
So and this is me on estrogen, like, and on the Mac
Right.
Daddy patch. Okay. I'm
Okay.
at like zero point 0.1. And
Oh, yeah.
believe
Oh, I'm not
me,
anywhere near that yet.
oh my
Yeah.
God, if I could go up, I would go up. Only because, so many things got better. Like I couldn't walk without pain in my hips. And I just thought, what is happening to me? What
Yeah.
is going on? And I remember going, it was summer, and I go, I think I'm just going to go out and lay on the ground because I hear earthing is supposed to be good for you. And maybe it will help. Like, this is where we're going with this. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just not okay. So first of all, I commend you immensely for being like, I'm going to get out ahead of this. And then
Yeah.
secondly, I mean, well, first of all, strength training is a pillar of support through the perimenopause and the menopause transition for the rest of your life. So the lifting is, heavy lifting. Yes. I just attended a menopause conference where you can also use lighter weights, but for more
The
repetition.
repetition.
So
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That was something I just learned this week. In
Yeah.
addition, I feel like I'm 10,000% with you with regard to avoiding the seed oils that are incredibly inflaming to the body. If you all were to look up how canola oil is made, you'd never touch it. You'd never go near it. And P.S., it's in everything. It's in all the restaurant foods, the way they're made, because it's the cheapest oil. And it's
Yeah.
an absolute nightmare for your body in terms of inflammation. So the fact that there's like no white flour, no white sugar, and that you are that clean, now I can see between the lifting and your diet that you were, of course you wouldn't have had the hot flashes. I mean,
Right.
I
Well, and the
think
crazy thing is that like, when you're like, well, I don't feel good, whether have you tried doing that and whatever. And I was like, that's what was part of the emotional struggle for me was like the part that I can control, I'm controlling and I'm working really hard at it.
yeah.
And then, but I'm like, and I can't control it and I can't get the help I need to actually control it.
It is, well, that's where you feel like this is a mind fuck. because
Oh yeah,
I'm doing X, Y, Z. I'm doing every letter in the alphabet. And I still can't get the result and the relief that I know has to be out there. And
right.
no one before this time was talking about it. We
Yeah,
were all suffering in silence. And, bone health, your bones become fragile with no symptoms.
right.
So, there are women, if you listen to Dr. Vonda Wright, who coined the phrase the musculoskeletal syndrome of
Yeah,
menopause. If you listen to her, she said there are women standing in their kitchen and they drop. And they
yeah,
drop, and then we're not sure if it's because the muscles are weak and they drop and break a bone because the bones are brittle after having no estrogen, or, whatever other reason is. But I mean, basically, it's a silent thing that happens,
right.
as is
Well,
other health.
well, and I was listening to, this is years ago now, a podcast of hers, and the same friend, she lives in California. She had had two surgeries and she was complaining of frozen shoulder. Well, she was like, well, of course you want because you want to believe the doctors, and that's what's so hard about all of this, is you do want to believe the doctors. And my father was a physician. He's retired, but he was a physician, and so seeing my experience made me question a lot and oh, I used to be in pharmaceutical sales. So I trusted my approach, my success in pharmaceutical sales was not because I was trying to sell more drugs. It was because I was trying to say to doctors, here are options for your patients. There's not one for all and all for one. And
Yes.
everybody's going to respond differently. And so don't give up and try this or try that. Like the same thing that I'm trying to do now with my own health. But I had a certain confidence, which you would hope that there would be a certain confidence and trust in a profession. And so it was very upsetting to me that these people, this class of people, or this trade of people that I so well trusted, was failing me.
Wow.
And so when I shared that with my friend, she was like, "Well, the surgeon, da da da, I'm gonna go to the acupuncturist and blah blah blah,"
Yes.
and it's still going. I mean, it's still going on, and she had to change insurance because the surgeon wasn't on the insurance that she was on through her husband's work, and so she got a policy out of pocket, like a whole nightmare mess.
Mm.
But we're actually talking about functional medicine doctors. And I don't know what your thoughts are on those, if you have a thought one way or the other, but I find I do not see one because quite honestly, I cannot afford to see one. And thankfully, through my persistence, I found somebody who's actually helping me and is looking at not just an organ, is looking at the whole body. And so I just suggested to her, and another friend of mine said to me, what's this whole thing everyone's doing with functional medicine doctors that they're paying out of pocket for? I
Mm.
said, well, number one, they're not stuck into a 15-minute time limit that the insurance companies allow them for reimbursement, but they're also saying, okay, you've got shoulder pain. And to give you another example, I talk about with everybody. I'm like happy to share my story. I think everybody, the men and the women at my gym all know my story,
Love
even
it.
when I'm not bleeding.
Good.
Yeah. But anyway, but another friend of mine had these headaches, and she had gone to Johns Hopkins and done like studies on like her brain to make sure her brain was okay, to try to figure out with a neurology team and everything why she was getting these headaches. And we were talking and stuff unrelated about menopause. And so she said, well, I'm going to try to work through it and whatever. And I said to her, why are you going to try to work through it? Like, that's just that. Why? Your body was producing something. It no longer is. You're just replacing it.
Correct.
So she
Correct.
started on HRT, MRT, and she ended up having some other thing that she had to come off of it for a short period of time. She didn't realize until she came off of it that the headaches had disappeared while she was on it.
Oh my God.
And I said to her, you went to all of these leading institutions,
Yes.
and your insurance company was willing to pay for all of these testing and study and everything. And no one said to you, you're fucking 50 years old. It might be related to your hormones. Yeah.
Wow.
So she got back on it and the headaches went away again.
Well, and nobody would think to say, I need to see an endocrinologist.
Correct.
I mean, like endocrinologists probably would run a hormone panel and,
Right.
see where you are. But no one I have ever talked to is like, oh, that's the first person I think I should go see, an endocrinologist.
Well, I was looking for when I was studying, and they are very few and far between, and nobody's accepting new patients. I
Yeah.
was looking for an endocrinology GYN, and so I ended up at a Euro GYN, and that's the one who said to me, "Why has anybody suggested an ablation to you to stop the bleeding?" And I said, "Only my friends all across the country." And he goes, "Anybody who practices medicine?" And I was like, "Nope."
Nobody suggested that. Wow.
Yeah, but that's why I believe in the whole concept of functional medicine because I do believe in the whole body and finding out how it's all connected.
Yes,
And I do think that in our mind, that's what our internist or general practitioner does. But what I'm kind of realizing is that's not they're not all of them are always connecting the dots
correct. Yeah, functional
because they're
medicine.
limited in the time of that they're able to do it.
Yeah, I think that we are now living in a time where functional medicine is like that's connecting the dots. And I think you're much more likely to be able to connect the dots when you do see somebody who practices functional medicine because these specialties are so defined and so
Yeah.
discrete that, they're not thinking big picture. It's not like Mayo Clinic where you've got everybody from all disciplines sort of working as a team. But I think that leads me to one of the points here, which is, you probably are going to need a team of people. Now, whether that team involves somebody that's, helping you with your food, or somebody that's helping you with your sleep, or whether it could also be you getting educated and
Hmm.
looking at, I'm just going to make one or two changes so that I can discern what kind of impact that's actually on me. But you know what? We can still change. Things can pop up even while we're on MHT. Life is going to keep pitching you balls. It's not going to stop. And just because you're, taking that hormone therapy doesn't inoculate you against the stress of living life. And so that's where I feel that's more of your navigation system that comes into play to be able to navigate those challenges. But we just would like a level playing field, meaning let's have all of our hormones be balanced well
Right.
while we're going in, right?
Right, right. And that's where, like I said to you earlier, I was like, when you said I wasn't one of your clients, and I was like, not yet. But because I do think that it's an important part of all this. And I think that what we go through, and I will say this so when I started on estradiol, I started on 0.25.
Mhm.
So a quarter of what you're taking, what you're using.
Yeah.
At about the 4 to 6 week mark, what I literally felt like is like, I have been driving through a rainstorm and somebody finally put on the windshield wipers. Yeah. And that's how sensitive I was to know, like, okay, something's changing again and I need more.
Yes, correct.
And it just so turns out that when I reached out to the previous physician and I was like, I need an increase and I don't need to see you to talk about, like, we can get on the
Correct.
phone. Like,
Yes.
I need an increase. And from when I reached out to her, because I had felt like crap for like 2 days, within 48 hours, I had started bleeding.
That is how in tune you are, Kim, with your
Yeah.
body.
And I had told people because they were like, what are you doing? I reached out to her. I promise you, I reached out to her. And then I was like,
Guess what?
and they were like, really? And I was like, I told you my estrogen was dropping. Like, I told you, I knew my estrogen was dropping.
Okay.
And I don't know if everybody is that aware or sensitive or anything, but, in a way, it's good that I'm aware because I'm able to kind of, and emotional regulation. Things were so bad for up until I started taking the hormone replacement in April of 2025. Things were so bad on there that if I was expecting my period, which I was pretty regular for most of my life, I didn't plan clients because I would get sick the morning of the day before or the morning of the first day that I started bleeding. I didn't plan clients in the morning on those days, and I didn't plan any travel on
Wow.
those days
So
because I
your
would
life
get,
was really altered because of
yeah,
this.
yeah,
Well, I think that you are illustrating the point here. Like one of the morals of the story is that listen to women,
oh,
listen to
100%.
us, listen to us, and you deserve to be heard. You deserve to be listened to because you're part of the team. You're as
Yeah,
important. You're the most important part of the team.
yeah.
Period.
Thank
End of
you.
story. So I have to tell you, you know what, Kim? I think you and I could probably just continue this conversation for the next many hours. But we are I think we're about at an hour right now.
Yeah,
So I just want to ask you to, if you could, what would be three things that you could offer in the way of advice for a woman who's really struggling right now, who doesn't know up from down, but knows that something's not right? Do you have any advice, three options maybe for what
sure.
should she do? What would be the best next steps for her?
Yeah, and I apologize. My dog has a contribution as well, if you can hear
Oh, I
him.
can and I
But I would say trust your gut. You know your body. Trust your gut. If you something's not right, trust your gut. And it goes along the lines of you're not there yet. Get clarity on what that means and say, like, and if the person that you're speaking to, a physician, whatever it might be, isn't able to explain that, move on. I mean, I hate to say it, move on. I mean, it's exhausting, but move on. And I think, another important thing is that you'll get there. If you do A and B, you'll get to C. I don't think my C is exactly where I want it to be yet, but I think it's a whole lot better than it was even 2 months ago, even before January. I just happened to see my physician on January 6th, and he started me on the new regimen that day.
Wow. It's just
And
been that recent.
yeah, oh yeah, it's been
Okay.
literally a month. Yeah, but that's where I'm like, you'll get there. Somebody will listen to you.
And trust yourself. Wow. I mean, powerful, powerful. And oh my gosh, have you been through it? And I'm just so thrilled that you're finally finding answers and you might not be there yet, but I see that you see you're on your way in a way that's different than before.
Thank
And
you.
I just want to say thank you so very much for sharing your story. And I just know that it's going to help other women, and it's certainly just been beyond a pleasure. And I'm
Thank you.
so happy to know you. I'm just so happy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me share my story.
Thank you,
My
Kim.
pleasure.
Okay, I'm gonna hit stop here.